Hey, what's up, guys? Glad you could join us again for another episode of the I Ching or the Oracle of the Cosmic Way series. And we are on hexagram number 9 right now. And we're having a great time going through this. So, what will we find out? We've learned some crazy, amazing things so far going through this. Let's see what hexagram number 9 has in store for us here. The taming power of the small, success through the small. And this hexagram is wind over heaven. The judgment, dense clouds, no rain from our western region. In this hexagram, the sage focuses on how people, animals, plants, and other aspects of nature are tamed and trained through small means. More specifically, it refers to how people are brought under the control of the collective ego through getting them to unquestionably follow rules that bind them to its structure. Small refers to the rewards used in this training. Good behavior, which earns the rewards given, is the term used to define conformity to the rules. Dense clouds is an image of the result of the conditioning process by which cosmic virtues are appropriated by the collective ego, then turned into abstract virtues, which cloud or obscure the light that would otherwise come from the person's true nature and virtue. Sorry, my shirt was unbuttoned for a second. Don't get too excited. No, just kidding. In the course of this conditioning, his senses of outer and inner seeing are brought under a spell that makes him focus only on the superficial appearance of things. It also causes him to look at things as objects, prohibiting him from recognizing that everything that exists has consciousness and dignity. By relying only on what he sees, the person is divorced from his feelings about what he observes. This creates in him a distorted perception, which then projects itself back upon the things he observes, distorting, in turn, their way of expressing themselves. Thus, the reality he observes is very much created by his projections. His sense of a reality is thus beclouded. No rain means that such a person is prevented from receiving the cosmic nourishment that would come from relating to the intrinsic nature of things. The Western region is a metaphor for a person's cosmic virtues from which nourishment comes. No rain indicates that the approval and rewards of the collective ego contain no true nourishment. In addition, the true nourishment cannot come because the collective ego has appropriated these virtues by making the person believe he does not have them, and therefore needs to develop them. Thus, for example, his natural loyalty to his inner truth is replaced by loyalty to the collective ego's institutions and values. His being loyal to his inner truth is denounced as subjective, irrational, and subversive. Instead, the collective ego's moral rules tell him how and to whom his virtues are to be applied, regardless of the circumstances. In the case of kindness, he is to be kind in circumstances which it describes as correct, even though this may mean that he puts his kindness in the service of the egos and others. The effect of this conditioning is to suppress the person's true self through making him doubt his inner truth and disregard the prompting of his cosmic virtues. It divorces him from his feelings by asserting that feelings are part of his weak nature and therefore cannot be trusted. The person is thereby reduced to relying only on thinking, which has also been brought on under the collective ego's control. The effect on the social structure as a whole is to deprive it of the feelings that would otherwise provide a harmonious interaction between all its people and make possible a natural society that is in harmony with the rest of nature and the cosmic whole. The conditioning can also be seen as introducing microchips of memory not only into the psyche of a person, but into certain muscles and organs as well. Similar to Pavlovian training, its goal is to produce reflexive behavior such as unquestioned obedience to authority. Such training, which is against a person's nature, invariably creates unplanned for consequences. Spells connected with this hexagram include phrases such as, people do not have cosmic virtue, all virtue is cultivated, human animal nature needs to be tamed. Success through the small. The cosmic meaning of this hexagram shows a person how his suppressed true self can be reclaimed from the subconscious step by step through the gradual penetration of the light of inner truth. The small in this case refers both to the small steps and the small seeds of ideas that, when deprogrammed, bring down the whole trees that have grown into ego complexes from the mistaken ideas. It also is a metaphor for the individual path of destiny that has begun by taking these first small steps. Entry onto this path often begins with the gift of love to two people. It comes as a cosmic intervention in their lives to reveal to them their lost true selves, which have become strangers within. Love, which is given only to their true selves, provides them with the opportunity to recognize and validate each other's true self as the rightful leader of the personalities. The gift also gives them an opportunity to recognize the presence of the invisible helpers in their lives. Line one, return to the path. How could there be blame in this? Good fortune. Return to the path is counsel given to a person who, through the influence of the ego, is tempted to abandon the path of freeing his true self. The ego presents the path as too hard or is not to be trusted because it requires that he depend on what he cannot see, or it does not appear to lead to his goal, or the ego will say that the way of the sage is a fiction of his imagination. Seed phrases behind such thoughts are, at some point, you're going to be disappointed. Such a path goes against the wisdom of the ages. And how can such small steps lead to big results? Or it is impossible to rid yourself of your ego. There are no such thing as spells or a demonic sphere of consciousness. The line may also indicate that a person is judging the gift of love he has received by what he ought to think about it, rather than by validating what his feelings are telling him or verifying their validity by consulting the sage. Such a person regards the shoulds of the collective ego as more important than his inner truth. How could there be blame in this? Refers to the effort he needs to make to rid himself of seed phrases that devalue his feelings as only subjective. This line defines the difference between true blame and what the collective ego calls blame. True blame is incurred when a person betrays his inner truth by following the shoulds of the collective ego. From the viewpoint of the collective ego, blame is incurred by disregard of its rules and values. A further difference is that true blame is never the cause of guilt and can always be extinguished either by a fate or by a sincere correction of attitude. The cosmos rejects altogether the idea of guilt, while the collective ego sees it as the consequence of blame. As the convicted felon is made to realize, the collective ego does not allow that guilt can be eradicated. It must be paid for endlessly, which is very, very sad. In order to return to the path of freeing his true self, a person also needs to rid himself of any feelings of guilt that he may have betrayed the values or rules of the collective ego. Actually, the reverse is true. It is the collective ego that betrays his true nature, that betrays your true nature. Return to the path also counsels a person against confronting the ego and another directly in an effort to counter it. Rather than being bothered by the ego's display and blaming him, the person says the inner no and asks for the help of the cosmos. If necessary, he agrees with him outwardly to allow him to save face as long as he is in that ego mode. In this way, his inner no supports the person's true self while not engaging the ego. Line two, he allows himself to be drawn into returning good fortune. This line draws our attention to the active help a person gets from the cosmos to draw him back to his true nature. The help referred to comes in the form of a cosmic gift. The gift can be a love relationship or a job opportunity because the receiver is modest and sincere. Receiving a love relationship, sudden wealth, or some other benefits to make the person aware that his good fortune does not come, as he may think, from his having been virtuous, but to strengthen his imprisoned true self. Recognizing this fact is to allow himself to be drawn into returning to the truth of the matter and to humility. The line may also apply to the person who thinks that his gift of love is the result of having successfully sublimated his lower nature, whereas the gift has been given to him to free the repressed part of his nature to make him whole. Seed phrases behind the idea of sublimating one's lower nature, and which puts spells and poison arrows on the body, are sexuality is part of one's lower instincts, and the instincts must be sublimated in favor of one's higher nature. The cosmic gift can also come as an unpleasant happening to make a person aware that he has put a projection spell or poison arrow on another. The unpleasant happening has the purpose of sparking him to reflect and correct himself. Allowing himself to be drawn into returning also counsels a person to leave behind friends or associates who are following the path of the collective ego. Leaving them behind does not mean that he mentally executes or condemns them, but says the inner no to their path and goes on his way, and goes on his own way. The line also is counsel against using the I Ching for ego purposes, that is, in any way that would diminish its dignity. At the same time, it is counsel against putting it up on a pedestal as a sacred book or putting the sage up as higher, which would distance the person from it. Line 3, the spokes burst out of the wagon wheels. Man and wife roll their eyes. The wagon referred to here is a metaphor for the natural progress of a person's life when he is in harmony with his nature. The spokes stand for his cosmic virtues that are in connection with his feelings slash inner truth, which are the wheels. When the individual undergoes the collective ego's conditioning mentioned in the main text of this hexagram, his virtues become separated from his feelings and inner truth. This is the meaning of the spokes burst out of the wagon wheels. By making his virtues conform to the standards prescribed by the collective ego, the person has put spells on his feelings and inner senses. Consequently, he has been acting from thinking and according to shoulds, and in the process has created a fate. This line can refer to the effect such a fate has on the sense of inner seeing when it is under a spell. It makes the person see a fate as undeserved, because he has been a virtuous person in the eyes of the collective ego. Receiving this line is to make him aware that he himself is the creator of his fate through betraying his inner truth. He also needs to realize that the fate is a cosmic response to his having violated cosmic laws. Fate is another means employed by the cosmos to draw him into returning to his inner truth and common sense. Fate, as shock, makes the eyes roll in terror. This is good because terror temporarily freezes the ego, thus allowing the person to get in touch with his true feelings. When fate comes in the form of an illness, it frees his senses from the spell put upon them by the collective ego. This line can also refer to a person who has put a spell on a situation that prevents progress. For example, through a mistaken idea of loyalty, a person has promised to be faithful to his partner for the rest of his life. The promise, in addition to giving permission to the ego and his partner to dominate the relationship, puts a spell on himself that forces him to be loyal no matter what. It also inserts into the other psyche the idea that regardless of what he does, he has a right to the other's loyalty. The person needs to ask for help to be freed from this spell. Ridding himself of it will also extinguish the fate he has created and open new possibilities for the relationship as a whole. This line can also draw a person's attention to a helper that makes him feel the gnawing of his conscience to remind him that he has betrayed his true nature. Feeling this gnawing is not meant to make him feel guilty, but to make him aware that he has created blame and give him an opportunity to rid himself of it. This is done by recognizing that thoughts of self-blame, or which blame life, are rationales coming from the ego. Through saying the inner no to these rationales, he frees helpers of his nature, his cosmic virtue, that are meant to help him through his life, and he enables his true self to grow. This line can also make a person aware that he is experiencing a fate because he has put a spell on a part of his nature by calling it lower, as by saying or thinking sexuality is part of one's lower instincts, and the instincts must be sublimated in favor of one's higher nature. This fate can be extinguished if he will rid himself of this spell. This line can also point to a spell put on the natural order of society through disbelief that such an order exists and that it would actually function. This spell blocks the helper of creativity and the helper of a natural society. Line 4, if you are sincere, blood vanishes and fear gives way. No blame. Blood vanishes and fear gives way is an explanation that the cosmos has intervened to correct the difficult situation because the person involved has kept himself open to cosmic help and refrained from any attempt to correct matters according to his own ideas. The line is also a statement that a person needs to be sincere in correcting himself after having broken a cosmic law. Blood, in this case, refers to his feelings of guilt and fear of punishment for having done so. He is incorrectly thinking of guilt and punishment in the way the collective ego does, and therefore fears that the matter cannot be corrected. This line tells him that in the given circumstance, to make blood vanish and fear give way, he needs to do two things. One is correct his error by recognizing he's done something wrong and saying the inner no to his wrongdoing. Second is to rid himself of the idea of guilt by treating it as a spell. Line 5, if you are sincere and loyally attached, you are rich in your neighbor. This line makes a person aware of the source of true blessings and success, the cosmic consciousness. Every person is directly connected with it through his neighbor, which is a metaphor for the helpers of inner truth. A person is in harmony and connected with the cosmic consciousness when he is sincere and loyally attached to his inner truth. The sage is the helper that helps him access his inner truth. No human intermediary can serve this function or interpret what his inner truth is telling him. Line 6, the rain comes, there is rest. This is due to continuous learning through one's feelings. The moon is only nearly full. If the superior man persists, misfortune comes. Perseverance brings the woman into danger. All right, this is a bit of a long one here. The rain comes bringing rest is an indication that a person has come to an understanding of what the sage means in a specific situation. The lesson has been learned, however, must not be taken as true for all situations. It is to be taken as only a handhold in his learning process. As a handhold, it is to be held onto until it is eventually succeeded by yet another handhold or broader understanding. This learning process allows no understanding of the moment to become true for all time. It is, however, dependable as a temporary structure that enables a person to make progress in his life. The moon is only nearly full is a reference to the moon's incomplete reflection of the sun. As a metaphor, it represents the person who, in learning from the sage by handholds, begins to think that he has learned the ultimate truth and therefore has become a superior man. This assumption, however, reveals that he has allowed the ego to appropriate what he has learned from the sage. Perseverance brings the woman into danger refers to this fact, since the woman stands for his feelings, which have now been shut out. Receiving this line can indicate that a person believes in the mistaken idea that enlightenment is the goal of developing his true self. This concept is only an invitation to egoistic pride, which is the enemy of all learning. The goal of enlightenment is taken from the collective ego's view of education. It implies a final state of knowledge or attainment acquired by studying things as objects in such a way that the student is divorced from his feelings about them. Studying things in this way projects upon the things being studied the distorted and degraded view produced by seeing them as objects. Cosmic learning, by contrast, is learning through listening to our feelings and through perceiving the dignity that is inherent in all things. This kind of learning enlarges our perception and enables us to discover things in their true identity and thereby to contribute to the ongoing evolution of the cosmic consciousness. The rain comes, there is rest also refers to the chi energy, harmony, and joy a person receives upon discovering life through his feelings and experiencing its underlying harmony. This experience is the source of an inner security that takes away all fear of the unknown through realizing that the cosmos is knowable through one's feelings. Seed phrases in this context are, there's only so much you can know. If you're in the know, you have nothing to fear. Knowledge is what distinguishes humans from animals. Knowledge gives you control. Ignorance is bliss. An image is the unknown, is as the unknown as an endless abyss into which one falls. So yeah, tame your power of the small. Every journey begins with a single step. And in this case, perhaps we could say that the step is to believe in the sage and hold together with the sage. All right, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.